Hello, my name is Shirley Self, and I'm here to talk astrology. Today I wanted to introduce you to the Federal Reserve. This is its horoscope. It was born December 23rd, 1913 at 6:02 p.m. in Washington, D.C. And this is when it was signed into law by President Woodrow Wilson. What is the Federal Reserve? We don't really know what the Federal Reserve is, do we? And you know why we don't know? Because look at this. It's got Neptune right here in the first house. That Neptune gives it cover, makes it unrecognizable. We don't understand it. It's hidden. Everything about it is hidden. And a lot of the reason everything about it's hidden is because economics is a very difficult subject. Actually, it's a very easy subject. But when you get into the way it really works, it is incredibly difficult. The Federal Reserve, what is it? Well, to quote a man named Anthony Sutton, who wrote a book called Wall Street and FDR, let me read that quote. The Federal Reserve is a legal, private monopoly of the money supply, operating for the benefit of the few, under the guise of protecting and promoting the public interest. The Federal Reserve is a bank that is run by bankers for the benefit of bankers. And notice we have on the second house, we have Leo here, and the sun, ruled by the sun in Capricorn. This is 1 degree Capricorn. So this second house of money here is ruled by this ambitious sun. It's interesting, this horoscope is a moon phase 25. A moon phase 25 is probably the most powerful phase in the whole system, the whole Yeats system of reincarnation. It's in the middle of the fourth quarter, and it is an expression of the power that has been generated through the previous 3.5 quarters. This moon phase 25 lives, expresses, and utilizes and shows the power that it has gained. It takes moon phase 26 to show the weakness that has been accomplished. So here we come to a very powerful entity, organization. Let me give you a tour of it. I don't know how well you can see this. This is Mars at 19 Cancer. It's retrograde. Neptune at 27 Cancer. It too is retrograde. The ascendant here is 18 Cancer. The South Node is here in the third house at 18 Virgo. The Moon here in the fifth is 14 Scorpio. Mercury on the cusp of the sixth is at 13. It's almost 14. It's 1357 Sagittarius. We've got Venus at almost 20 Sagittarius, and the Sun at 1 plus Capricorn. The descendant, of course, is our 18 degrees of Capricorn. Okay, Jupiter, 23 Capricorn. Uranus at 5 Aquarius. Chiron at 10 Pisces, almost 11 Pisces, 1056. The North Node at 18 Pisces. Saturn over here at 13 Sagittarius in the 11th house. And Pluto at 0 Cancer in the 12th. And it is retrograde. So this very powerful entity has some very debilitated planets. Let's look at the debility of this one. We've got Jupiter over here is in its fall. And Mars is in its fall. The Moon is in its fall. Mercury is in its detriment. Now, a clue about planets in their fall and detriment is they don't function well, and by that I mean they don't function optimally. They tend to run to the negative instead of the positive. I have my Mars is actually in rulership, but my Saturn is in detriment. It's actually in its fall, in its house of fall. So my Saturn, it's got the South Node conjuncted. So my Saturn really, really sucks. And what Saturn in Aries does for me is I don't want to participate in the world. And I have fought this tendency all my life because other things in my life say, well, Saturn's an old stick in the mud. Get on and get out there and get on with it. But the Saturn still is telling me, don't leave home. Don't go anywhere. There's nothing worthwhile out there. And it virtually puts a crimp on my life. And that tends to be the truth of planets in their detriment and fall, is they don't work in the best interest of the energy that's trying to run through them. So we've got this Jupiter over here in Capricorn because of where it is and the aspects to it. That is a very stingy, miserly Jupiter. It's the opposite of what you think of as Jupiter. We've got the Mars over here in its fall, and it is super sensitive and overreactive. And it's because Mars is in the first house there. It's this is a very super aggressive and assertive entity we've got here. The moon in Scorpio is concerned about its own interest. It tends to be selfish and jealous and dominating and aggressive because it's ruled by Mars. And so we've got the Mars and the moon in mutual reception there, exacerbating and in trine, exacerbating the negative tendencies of this whole unit here. Notice that this chart has only got two positive aspects. The moon has a trine to Mars and a trine to the North Node and Chiron. That's it. This is an inconjunct. This is an inconjunct, and those inconjuncts are energies that have to work together. They tend to be incompatible on their own and have to learn, grow up and learn to work together. And they're aspects of sickness and disaster. And that's why it's imperative that you learn to work with your inconjuncts, because they'll make you sick. They'll kill you. They'll ruin your love life. So here we have, and one other, there's a lot of interesting things going on here. We've got here 1 degree Capricorn, a 1st degree of Cancer, 1st degree of Aries, Libra. So this is a square, a grand square in the Aries points, in the cardinal ingress points. And that gives a tremendous amount of initiative, new beginnings. Let me have a sip of water here. So, the Fed is a very powerful entity. It's not working on our behalf. The government, we used to be on the gold standard. That was eliminated in 1971. A lot of things went south for the United States in 1971, and I don't mean Mexico. I mean went to hell. We had Nixon. We had, that's when business started taking a bad attitude toward its customers and decided that the bottom line was more important than any good they could do in the world. Noblesse oblige was eliminated in the 70s. So anyway, now that we're not on the gold standard, money is printed at will. Now you say, well, what does the Fed do? Well, what the Fed does is print money and loan it to our government. That's where it gets it. And prints money and loans it to our government, and then we pay interest on it, this money that we borrow from the Fed. And there is no accounting. The profits are supposed to go back into the Treasury, profits off of this loaning of money. They also loan money to banks, and often give money to the banks. If, like, look at the last big recession, when the Fed printed up billions of dollars and bailed the banks out of their own foolishness. So, the Fed loans us money. Now, the truth of the matter is that what we've got is similar to what we've got in our medical system. We've got an intermediary who makes money off of the fact that we have to buy insurance. And so we've got insurance companies. When the Obamacare was instituted, Congress is so afraid to hurt big business's feelings that it didn't have the guts to do single payer, which means that we would pay into our own pool. We'd pay into a pool that was, it doesn't have to be government run. It could be, but it should be run by the people. And have our own insurance company. But no, we've got this intermediary that pulls profits, demands profits, and makes profits off of the fact that we have to buy insurance. So this is a very similar situation. We don't need the Fed. We don't need the Fed. It makes profits off of manipulating our money supply. And what it does is it tends to manipulate the interest rates and the freely available money supply. M1, it's called. So let's look at how stable our Fed is. The fact of the matter is, if the Fed would just say, okay, we're expecting a growth of 3%. Let's stick with a growth of 3% and stabilize our money supply. But it doesn't. It tinkers with our money supply. Notice that the Sun is in Capricorn. Now the Sun in Capricorn yearns for stability, but where is it? It's in that bouncy, ever moving 6th house of this isn't working very well. You need to fix it. The 6th house, you know, is our where we gain self-mastery. And how we gain self-mastery is dealing with the things that goes wrong with us, learning about ourselves. And so anything that's kind of out of kilter, out of balance, this is the balance point here. Anything that is out of balance, you'll find over here in the 6th house. And what we have here is the yearning for stability, Sun in Capricorn, which rules the 2nd house here of money. And so it is not finding stability. And notice that it is opposed Pluto. Now this is a power trip. This is a desire for power. And it is square the midheaven, meaning that it doesn't, this instability isn't helping. It isn't, this instability isn't helping. Where the Sun is not of benefit to what the Fed says it wants to do, which is give us a stable rate of growth in our economy. And but it can't help tinkering. Okay, it's got this Mercury. Notice the Mercury is opposing Saturn. This opposition is called partile because it's within a half a degree. It's in the same. It's in the 14th degree of Gemini, Sagittarius. Now, the Mercury in Sagittarius. It's kind of a depressive Mercury. It's not. It's because of, I'm sorry, the Mercury in Sagittarius just pops off. It goes too fast. There's one of the cards in the Tarot is a Mercury in Sagittarius. I think it's the Ten of Wands. And it means everything's going really fast, but no, it's not the Ten of Wands. I'm sorry, I don't know which. That one's Saturn in Sagittarius. But it means that, yeah, it's going to go, but it's not going to go very far, and there's no follow-up. It doesn't go, it's just a firework. So here we've got our firework here. And the Saturn over there is in Gemini. What we've got here is a slow learner. And theories. Mercury, excuse me. Mercury in Sagittarius is really hooked into the latest theory. Sagittarius, you know, is concerned with higher education. And Mercury always have theories. And so we have the latest theories. And so the latest theories tend to run the Fed. They're trying to actually make money off of us without killing us off. It's proved more difficult for them than they expected, I think. The moon is square to Uranus, and that's hasty decisions. Often unconsidered decisions. It's unpredictable. They're unpredictable. And so, and we've got the sun there tinkering in the Virgo house, the house of sickness and work. And so what the Fed does, instead of helping us to have a stable growth of 3%, which is reasonable, it's actually the goal, is they tinker with it. They tinker with it. They tinker with it because they can. Because they're in power. This is a power trip for sure. This Mars-Pluto straddling here. And it's a power trip of security because we're talking about Cancer here. This power trip is ruled by this moon. And the moon is involved with security. And what the Fed does is it makes sure that the banks are secure. Its tinkering, however, has caused every recession and depression that we have endured since 1913, including the Great Depression. Those recessions, we call them now recessions, recession and inflation. So this up and down roller coaster really costs the people, the masses in the United States, a lot of money, because every time a recession happens, there are people on the bottom end that simply drop away go bankrupt. But the people at the top, oddly enough, the people at the top always come out of a recession better off than they went in. It seems to have a ratchet effect. So every time the recession goes down, it's a ratchet effect. The people at the top, the banks, the bankers, the rich folks who own most of Wall Street, they come out of it better off. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer. Boom and bust. And it's really hard on the people. And let's look at the United States chart in conjunction with this one. Let me turn this. Here, there we go. Okay, the sun of the Federal Reserve is opposing our Cancer planets. It's over here. And very well situated over here. And let's see, what else do I have here? Okay, this Mercury Saturn opposition here is right here. Here's the Fed Mercury. Here's the Fed Saturn. The Mars here in 19 Cancer is up here in our house of other people's money, a house of debt. The Neptune is, where's our Neptune? Okay, 27 degrees Cancer is here, opposing our Pluto. One of the things about a Mercury Saturn on your ascendant descendant, there's a danger of theft. And I thought, oh, that's appropriate. It's pretty much what we got going on here. So we're getting ready to have this Pluto return. And what that's going to do is going to put Pluto on, Pluto is right now here on the descendant. And I'm thinking that what Pluto does is it wakens you up, if nothing else, by some disaster will wake us up. And we're seeing that. We're seeing the disaster of not just war, but our society is torn apart. Our planet is dying. So let's see how the Fed can deal with this disaster. We're having a Mars-Pluto opposition there right now. And Neptune is right here. Their Neptune, transiting Neptune, is now on their south node. Notice that their north node is conjunct Chiron. A node conjunct Chiron, well, it would say, you know, Chiron says repair, fix. Chiron is the repairman. And so we've got the repairman fix people's faith in the society. The stable money supply would help people to have more faith in our society. But it's a North Node Chiron conjunction, very difficult, and very few people bother doing it. Yogananda had a North Node conjunct Chiron, and I think he did his Chiron, his North Node. So what else do we have here? The U.S. moon is up here in the Federal Reserve's 8th house. So they're keeping us in the dark. The moon here in the Fed chart is in the house of gambling. And that's an issue with this Mars. So that's an issue with this Mars moon trine, is that what we're dealing with here is compulsive gamblers. And they're gambling not with their money. They're gambling with our money. Because, like I say, boom and bust, we're the ones that go bust. They boom. Let's see, what else do I have? The Mars moon trine is also it's the only optimistic part in here. It's the aspect of surgery. I don't find much hope there. That they will actually do the surgery that needs to be done. That they will actually do this Chiron North Node. They won't. We're going to have to, and what the United States, the people of the United States have to do now, is we wake up. Pluto's getting ready to come back. Pluto's right here. We wake up, and Neptune is right opposite that, getting right up, moving to opposite. And all of this is a wake-up call. And I see people responding to that wake-up call by getting involved in politics. People with new ideas. People who have noticed that the old stuff isn't working. Time for some more compassionate. We've got such a tremendous potential for compassion here. Notice this Jupiter, our Jupiter is in Cancer. And this is the most generous. well, it's not more generous than Jupiter in Pisces or Sag, but it is concerned about that other people are taken care of. That's its major concern. And so not only are we not being taken care of, but because notice that sun right there is opposing this our generous, our caring, compassionate Cancer planets. There was something else I wanted to point out to you. The Gemini thing. Notice this Saturn is in trine to this Saturn. A beautiful trine. And it sits right here on our descendant. But it means that a lot of the problem with Congress, who's supposed to be in charge of our money, is they simply don't understand economics. And so they're just glad to let somebody else tell them what to do. And so the Fed tells them what to do, and they do it. The Fed has never bailed out, as far as I know, businesses other than banks. They let Chrysler fail. The Fed tinkering with the money supply and the interest rates ensured that Jimmy Carter didn't get a second term and that Ronald Reagan was elected. And when Ronald Reagan was elected, then we get trickle-down economics, another word for piss on you economics. So the problem with them is they're just so powerful. They're just so powerful. They virtually have a lock on our money. They've got a lock on our debt. They got us by the balls. And I think it's going to take an awful lot of courage on the part of new people coming into our government to pull that power, the power of the purse, away from the Fed and put it back where it belongs, in Congress. Congress has given away the power to the purse to the president and the Fed, and we're getting the reckoning soon. That year, I don't know if I pointed this out. The Uranus of the Fed is right on our south node, so we don't care. We don't understand, and we're not going to pay any attention. And that is very handy for them. It gives them the freedom to do what they want. The tinkering, the sudden tweaks and fixes and whatever. You know, that they... Because trust me, whatever they do, they can print money. They print money. There is no backing for our money. A return to the gold standard would actually release the market forces to drive the economy. But the Fed, tinkering with the interest rates and the money supply, gives us this continual boom and bust. And meanwhile, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. There's a couple of books I can recommend to learn a little about the Fed. I think the easiest one to access is a book called The Creature from Jekyll Island by a man named Griffin. I've been working on this one, which, while I recommend it, is exceedingly thick, and it helps if you had some economic theory, which I had some economic theory when I was going to college. I had a wonderful first-year economics teacher. She was an economist. She was not someone who usually taught. And if she taught for a second year, I would have gone on and studied economics for at least the second year because she was so good. But the second-year teacher was not up to my snuff, and so I only had 1 year of economics, which at least I know a certain amount of the language. And it's... Once you understand, however, the basic way, the way the money works, and the way the banks work. Our Congress should be able to deal with this. Congress is up here. They run the money. They should be able to deal with it. I am hoping that all of our congressmen, our congressmen, yeah, are not senile. And I'm hoping that our new congresspersons are willing to take on this this monster here, this creature from Jekyll Island. What happened was in 1910, notice that it was made official in 1913, but in 1910, a bunch of high-powered rich folks and a senator or two and bankers all went to Jekyll Island and concocted this takeover and were successful. And it only took them 3 years to get it passed and to ensure that they were going to be able to, let me show you the horoscope of the U.S. again, loot our resources, our treasures. Second house is a house of treasures. That they would be free to loot our treasures forever. Anyway, that's the Fed. They're a scary bunch because they own the money and they can break you and me and do regularly with their tweaking, their manipulation of the money supply and the interest rates, etc. So that's the, I'm warning you, these people are not our friends. So that's my rant on the Fed, and I hope it was informative to you. But something's going to happen. It's the squeeze on the United States is getting to be, we are noticing it, and we have to do something. We need to bring ourselves back together. We need to bring our nation back together. And one way I think we can do it is to free ourselves from those entities that would govern us, like the Fed, like the NRA, to their own benefit and not to ours. Anyway, blessings to you, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.